It's a warm Tuesday afternoon. Hello and welcome to The Pulse. Welcome to you live from our studio, Siakukumlemle. We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, and around the world on myjoyonline.com. This afternoon on The Pulse, minority protest parliament declaration of Kpandai seat vacant as Frank Annoh-Dompreh demands immediate reversal of the decision, describing the move as unfair, a breach of principle, and an affront to justice.
In terms of organizing an election, obviously we will have to advise ourselves.
They go to court to lay injunction.
Yes, it's an option that will be pursued aggressively to stay the hands of the AC until the substantive matter is finally determined.
We're live in Parliament, where the minority also vowed to use every legal means to injunct any move by the EC to conduct a by-election in Kpandai until all pending cases in court are determined.
Decision will not stay. As we humbly call upon you to instruct the clerk. The clerk must be instructed forthwith to withdraw that letter and act according to law.
Also this afternoon, as the Annoh-Dompreh-led mediation committee prepares to present its report on the Boko conflict on Thursday, the People's National Convention is calling for all political parties to be included in the presentation. Also this afternoon on The Pulse, former Education Minister Dr. Yawo Seiduchum blames poor 2025 WASSCE results on government's failure to continue key education initiatives introduced by the previous administration. We have more on this as he argues that extra classes, teacher training and e-learning support have all been abandoned, contributing to the candidates' poor showing. We have these and more coming up here on The Pulse. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Defendril Cough Expectorant. Defendril, breathe easy, feel better. My name is Faustina Safo. Please stay with us. Chants there from the floor of Parliament, where the minority today staged a major protest on the floor, forcing proceedings to grind to a halt over the declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant. Their action follows a letter from the Clerk of Parliament to the Electoral Commission asking the EC to organize a rerun of the Kpandai parliamentary election as directed by the court. This comes after the Tamale High Court on December 24 annulled the December 7 results following a lengthy election petition that revealed anomalies across 41 polling stations. Acting on the court's ruling, the clerk wrote to the EC on Monday to formally declare the seat vacant, a move that triggered strong pushback from the minority. My colleague James Aveji is live in Parliament. He joins us live with more. James, we also know that the minority is pushing for the removal of the Clerk of Parliament. Why exactly?
Well, Fossey, that was part of the chant they have been chanting. You heard there. We'll get there with regards to what exactly their demands are. But I must establish to you that what you just played led to a temporary halt of proceedings in Parliament. The Speaker, who was in the chair, Bernard Ahia, for the First Deputy Speaker, when he was adjourning the House, said we are going on a 5-minute break. But for the past 1.5 hours, the House is yet to be called to back to session. If you can see, I don't know if my cameraman can help us see what is happening. the leadership of the two sides of the House are currently not in their chairs. Both the majority and the minority sides are still not in their chairs, but we have members of both sides still seated in the last 1.5 hours, while their leaders and the speaker, we want to believe, are locked up in conclave in order to get some solutions to the demands of the minority who want that decision to be turned down. It all started right after the corrections of vote and proceedings, when the speaker after that asked for the leader of the House, which is the majority leader, to inform the House on what the business of the day would be. Then we had the minority whip, Frank Annoh-Dompreh, stand to his feet and ask for the House to go to Order 8, or the business number 8 on the order paper, which talks about statement. And he prayed the speaker to allow him to come under Order 43 of the standing orders of the House, which talks about statements or urgent statement. And then he delved into the matter of the communication under the hands of the Clerk of Parliament sent to the EC declaring the Kpandai seat vacant. He first questions why Parliament will have to deviate from what he calls principle. You remember the speaker last week thereabouts indicate that he cannot declare the seat vacant unless there is clear order from the court, and that as far as he is concerned, the court, there has been an injunction in that court order, and so he cannot declare the seat vacant. Frank Annoh-Dompreh said, questions why the speaker will now deviate from that principle, and questions why the Clerk of Parliament will have to now write to the EC declaring that seat vacant and ask whether this is coming because the MP is involved, who is involved now, is a member of the minority. We can listen to him.
The question that naturally arises is, why has the principle changed? What explains the abrupt departure from the binding reasoning you articulated on 24th November 2025? Why does the stay rule apply in one circumstance, but not the other, particularly when the factual and procedural posture is virtually identical? Speaker, Ghanaians are asking, and we in this House must also ask, is this because Honorable Matthew Nyendam is a member of the New Patriotic Party? The Speaker, the law does not discriminate. The law does not bind or stiffen binding on whether an NPP or NDC member stands before it. The impartial and consistent application of procedural rules is the bedrock of the rule of law and the credibility of this House. If Parliament begins to act as though legal rules are optional, binding on some days, and dispensable on other days, then we risk sliding into a dangerous culture of political tit for tat, where each majority and minority merely waits for its turn to get even. Speaker, such a power fractures confidence in this institution and threatens the stability of our democratic order. Mr. Speaker, today it may appear expedient for one side. Tomorrow, the rules may reverse. If we abandon principle today, we leave the future Parliament with a trail of inconsistency that invites retaliation, weakens the authority of Speaker's chair, and erodes public trust. Mr. Speaker, we must do better. And this House must do better, and we must act better. Let us commit ourselves to principle leadership, to procedural fidelity, and to the understanding that this House is a guardian, not a manipulator of the law. Legitimacy of Parliament depends on our consistency. The legitimacy of Parliament depends on our consistency, and we can't do otherwise. And consistency depends on our willingness to obey, not our political impulses, but the clear dictates of the law.
The Frank Annoh-Dompreh. But James is still with us. James, the minority went ahead to make some specific demands. What exactly are they?
Their demand is clear that the House or Parliament must take an immediate action to call for the withdrawal or the reversal of that order from
submit that the letter that was filed to the Electoral Commission was out of place, was unfortunate, and flies in the face of law and procedural justice. We submit strongly to this House that that letter must be withdrawn by Parliament forthwith, and we must act and stay consistent with the pronouncements of the chair, for that matter, the speaker on this same matter. We in the minority do not agree to the writing of this letter. We make a strong position that that letter must be withdrawn forthwith. And as a cradle of democracy, we must be seen to be setting a very good example for the populace of this country to follow suit. Speaker, I submit to you that letter must be recalled. That letter declaring the Kpandai seat vacant must be recalled immediately. It must be recalled immediately. It cannot be. It cannot be. The situation cannot. And we on this house, on this side of the house, cannot support that decision. Ghana is a fledgling democracy, and the least we can do is to support procedure, is to support the provisions of our law, and to stay away from decisions that flies in the face of logic and procedural justice. We are totally against it. In this House, we have worked in collaboration and in cooperation with our colleagues in the majority. Even where you don't have your numbers, we have allowed you to lay papers and do all manner of things. This decision will not stay. This decision will not stay. And because we humbly call upon you to instruct the clerk. The clerk must be instructed forthwith to withdraw that letter and act according to law. I so submit.
Well, James Abeji is still with us. Let's take you back to Parliament. James, we know that generally the process is supposed to be smooth, but at what point really did it degenerate into that prolonged protest we saw earlier?
Well, Fosti, so just when the minority whip landed on that point, the entire minority members who were sitting right behind him, all cladded in black and in black nose mark as a sign of protest against what has happened, sprang to their feet and began chanting patriotic song. At a point, they chanted that Jethro must go, calling for the resignation of the clerk to Parliament. I also went on to chant that there's no third term for Mahama. In fact, if you look at some of the placards or the printings they hold in Parliament, some had the inscription, quote, "We can see through your third term agenda, dark days for Ghana's democracy," and that the diplomatic institutions asking whether they cannot see and cannot speak. Some even went ahead to accuse the president of having some influence over the judiciary. You will play that sound and you will see that at the point, the minority leadership, which is the deputy minority whip and the second deputy minority whip, Habib Idris, as well as the Jerry Ahmed, found it very difficult to control them. They went on with the chanting for about 10 minutes until the speaker announced that 5 minutes break in order to cool heads off and have some audience with the leadership of both sides to agree on something before they come back.
I will suspend sittings for 5 minutes, and I expect to see the leaders of the House at the lobby.
Well, James, you also spoke to the Council for the Minority, and they've been telling you their plan B. What exactly do they have up their sleeves?
Well, firstly, John Darko has revealed that as it stands now, it looks like the horse has bolted from Parliament, and now their focus is on the Electoral Commission. What they seek to do is that with any move from the EC to get into that by-election, they would employ every legal action available to them in order to stop that process from coming on.
We know that the parties requested for this matter to be heard before the Supreme Court on the 16th of December. So we are expecting that at least that will be heard and a ruling given. So why this indecent haste? Where are we rushing to? Okay? I am completely appalled that we are doing this ourselves. We are destroying our democracy. It looks like we don't want this democracy that, we have adopted for ourselves. We want some form of dictatorship. And that shouldn't be encouraged at all.
I'm interested in knowing, as counsel to the minority, what legal options are you giving your side of the House to explore to stay the hand of Parliament and the EC as far as this directive is concerned?
Well, the EC hasn't said anything yet. We know that a form of communication has been sent to the EC. We are waiting for the EC. If the EC makes any decision, we will advise ourselves. In terms of organizing an election, obviously we will have to advise ourselves.
Go to court to lay injunction?
Yes, it's an option that will be pursued aggressively to stay the hands of the EC until the substantive matter is finally determined.
Well, James, as we wrap up with you, now that officially that notice has been served, what is the next line of action? Well,
firstly, what we're learning is that the EC in the next few days would now announce an official date for that by-election, for that rerun, I must say. From precedents, the EC would have to work within the number of days or the duration provided by the court. We know that in the court ruling, they gave the EC 10 days, but that had elapsed already. What we don't know is whether the EC would now start the counting of that 10 days from when they have received this directive from Parliament, but they would do what we call notice of poll, and we also understand that it is only the three candidates who contested on December 7 are the only ones who will be contesting in this now. The NDC's candidate, the NPP, as well as the All People's Congress APC's candidate, all those three are the ones who will be contesting in the election. We know that about 66,850 constituents will be voting in that election as well. So we're waiting for that official communication from the EC, which will tell us when exactly they will be doing that election and the roadmap to the election proper. But I must indicate to you that the leadership of both sides have just returned to the House, both from the majority side, led by the majority whip, Honorable Roxy Nelson Dapamekpo, in some conversation with his members there. The NPP side, which is the minority, also has come back, led by Frank Annoh-Dompreh, and you see them in some sort of meeting, brief meeting amongst them, the NPP or the minority side, as we wait for the Speaker to walk to the House and gavel the House to order. And so I would just presume that they are sharing with members what has been agreed upon in that meeting with the leadership or the Speaker of Parliament, and we will see from now whether the proceedings will go on smoothly or this issue will be debated amongst the two sides of the House. If there is a debate, then we have a long way to go as far as this issue is concerned. It is not yet over. We'll be expecting either side of the House to also hold a press conference to address the issue in the course of the day. Mind you, the business of the day is not yet started. It's past 3 p.m. and we don't know whether they will be concluding that before the House finally adjourns permanently for today for sittings tomorrow. But in your short there is both sides of the House, especially the minority, who are all cladded in black. In a short meeting, the minority leader, Frank Annoh-Dompreh, they're having a communication with the members who just want to believe that he's telling them what exactly has been agreed upon in that meeting with the both sides as well as the Speaker. From here, the Speaker will come in, gather the House to order, and then proceedings will continue from here. Fosti.
So much, James Afeji, and we'll come back to you when proceedings officially commences. Well, let's explore this further here on the Pulse. Joining me now is a former majority leader, also Chairman Sabon. So we appreciate your time here on the Pulse. I also have the former ranking member on the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament, Inusa Fuseni, joining us here on the Pulse. We appreciate your time. But let me start with Chairman Sabon. Let me start with your initial reaction. As we speak, the Member of Parliament for Kpandai, Machiyindam, his seat has been declared vacant. How would you describe Parliament's handling of this matter?
I think it's most unfortunate what has happened in Parliament. Vacancy in Parliament is declared by three parties in three different situations. If a member of Parliament dies or maybe suffers from some eternal decapitation, the family would inform the Speaker of the transition or permanent station and say that the person is not able to do that. So he can't any longer hide. That will come from the family. Then Parliament account that would inform the executive that this is what, and then the executive in that then organize election to fill vacancy. So in that regard, in that instance, the declaration of the vacancy is at the instance of the family. Parliament itself may declare a vacancy where, say, a member is found in contempt of Parliament. And that contentious attitude from may in that it is Parliament that declares the instance a committee that delves with and come conclusion. So Parliament declaration is only where that's found to be in Parliament of the privileges part. So the second way where education vacancy where for
Mr. Chairman, I'm struggling to hear you, and I presume my audience as well. So I'd like you to position rightly, and we'll try one more time just to hear you clearly. If I hear you right, you're of the opinion that Parliament erred in its handling of the Kpandai seat. Is that the case?
That exactly is what I'm saying, and I'm coming to that. The third declaration of vacancy is by the courts, where after an election, a petition is made to the court on account of hearing and adjudicating on the matter. The court may declare a seat vacant. So in this particular case, the declaration of the vacancy is by the court. Now, that process and procedure has not terminated, and the party has filed, or the member has filed, for a review of the declaration by the court. The case has not terminated. So how can the Speaker direct the clerk? How can the Speaker then direct the clerk to, declare a vacancy? That in itself is a very outrageous commission on the part of Parliament. Let's also be informed by what happened in the Jachi Kwesim case. What happened then? At that time, the Speaker of Parliament said that because the case was still proceeding, had not terminated, even when it was obvious that the case had terminated, they said the clerk should refuse service from the court and directed the deputy speaker not to avail themselves to receive any court process. Has changed. Where today we have this, the case has not terminated, the person involved has proceeded to seek a review of the case, and the Speaker has directed, in the midst of it, the Speaker has directed that the seat is declared vacant. On that account, this really is miscarriage of justice. It cannot be allowed to stand. So
but in this scenario, who then watches the watchman? Because if the Speaker erred in his directives to the Clerk of Parliament, are there any provisions in the standing orders that can be explored by the minority to get justice?
The Speaker's own declaration can be challenged by the minority that he has erred. So I think that should be the start-off point. That what the Speaker has done is in violent contradiction of the provision in our rules. The Parliament in this case is not clothed with the authority to declare the seat vacant. It's the court. And the processes have not terminated. So how can Parliament intervene to say that we have declared it vacant? It's totally wrong.
And what's the procedure to challenge this?
There is a procedure to challenge it. They can immediately, the minority must immediately challenge the directive of the Speaker on this. Then they take it from there, whilst again doing their own battles in the courts. Because what happens if after this tomorrow the court hear the matter and reverse the decision? What will happen? I think this is a very unfortunate situation in Parliament, and I think the Speaker must be told that what he's doing is very selective, and that is most inappropriate misconduct from him.
And Maji Ndam himself will be going to court in a couple of days just to defend himself at the Supreme Court, because you're challenging the process. Maji Ndam's legal team, they're challenging the process at the Supreme Court. They argued that the Tamale High Court lacked jurisdiction to even hear the case that led to that verdict on which the Parliament is actually acting on. But then what happens now? Should the court rule in his favor? Is there a way to turn back the hands of time?
That is why this rush, if so to call it, and I think it's appropriate to call it properly, is most unnecessary and most fortunate. Especially against the backdrop of what happened in the Jekikwesin case. The same speaker. What has changed? What is right is right, what is wrong is wrong. Let's be truthful to ourselves. Let's be truthful to our conscience.
Stay with me, Chairman Sabonsu. I'll come back to you, but let me bring in Unusa Fuseni at this point in time as we look at the legalities of some of the concerns the minority has raised. I appreciate your time here on the Pulse. The minority's argument, really, regarding Parliament's handling of the matter in question. What's your thoughts about it? They argue that there are already pending cases at the Supreme Court, hence Parliament ought to have hastened slowly with the declaration of the seat vacant. Legally, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, thank you for having me. And let me put some matters that have been spoken about by Honorable Chairman Sabonsu in perspective. The clerk to Parliament has the authority to declare a seat in Parliament vacant upon the occurrence of certain conditions. Death, resignation by the hand of the Member of Parliament, and when a Member of Parliament has otherwise been declared unelected, when a court declares the seat of Member of Parliament vacant consequent upon an election petition. It is the clerk that informs the Electoral Commission. That's what the Constitution says. The Constitution doesn't even provide that the Speaker has to direct the clerk to Parliament to write that letter. So to suggest that the clerk to Parliament was directed by the Speaker of Parliament to write that letter to the EC is not supported by evidence or law. The second thing is that when a court gives a decision, practice and convention requires that that decision be stayed for a period of 7 days. Because the court itself knows or have reasons to believe that when a decision is given, the aggrieved party might want to take advantage of the processes of court to stay that decision of the court. After the 7 days, there must be processes to stay that decision. If there are no processes to stay that decision, the decision can be executed. So it is not the case that a person files or loses a case in the election petition, files for appeal or certiorari, and fails, refuses, or neglects to move a motion for the stay or file a motion for the stay of the execution of the court judgment of the court of the High Court, and hope that because he has filed processes in court, and those processes will operate as a stay of execution. It doesn't work that way. The nearest it can work is that when the processes are filed, including the stay of execution, those processes are served on the institution or the person affected by the decision. In this case, on the on Parliament, the clerk to Parliament, and also the petitioner in the matter, now respondents, and also the Electoral Commission, because the Electoral Commission was a party to the suit.
I see.
So those parties or the parties involved will be obliged, because of the service of the pendency of an application before courts, which application can end one way or the other, will be obliged to respect the processes of the court and abide the decision of the court when the motion is moved. To argue that the processes have been filed, but not argue that those processes have been served on the parties, is to suggest that a party, a losing party in the case, can simply go to file processes in court and sleep on those processes to forestall the execution of the judgment of the court. It doesn't work that way.
So your argument really is that legally, because the interested parties in the suit has not been served, then the stay of execution they filed in court doesn't count. Is that the case?
Doesn't operate on them because they have no notice of any stay of execution.
But what about the substantive case that they are at the Supreme Court, which the case is yet to be heard? The minority argues that they are in court challenging the jurisdiction of the Tamale High Court in itself to even handle this matter. But that case has not been heard yet, no verdict yet, and then you go ahead to notify the Electoral Commission.
So we take it one at a time.
Okay.
So when the decision of the High Court was given, my understanding is that the respondent in the case, Matthew Nyindam, filed an appeal. His lawyers said they had anticipated a decision of that nature, and so they went to court with an appeal against the decision of the High Court in hand, coupled with a stay of execution. Did they ensure that the stay of execution was served on Parliament? Did they ensure that that was served? So that is the starting point of the discussion. Now, you cannot have a stay of execution if you don't appeal against. The stay of execution must rest on something. You cannot build a stay of execution on nothing. So it must stay on something. Now, after they filed an appeal against the decision of the High Court Accra, they subsequently they invoked the jurisdiction, supervisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to quash the decision of the High Court. Was it served on Parliament? Was it served on the clerk? So these are questions you need to ask. The jurisdiction of the court or the jurisdiction of the clerk to write or not write a letter to EC is not invoked by statements made on the floor of the House. It's a jurisdiction founded in law, and the only process that can stop it is a legal process that challenges the exercise of that jurisdiction. So now, if they want to stop the operationalization of that the letter sent by the clerk to Parliament, to my mind, they have to arrest the letter by going to court, to stay the execution of the judgment and stay the execution of the letter or the implementation of the letter written declaring the seat vacant until the final determination of the case.
And should that happen really, what then would be the outcome? Because the Clerk of Parliament has already written to the Electoral Commission, and so the Kpandai seat has already been declared vacant.
No, the Speaker has written to the EC, not Speaker, the Clerk to Parliament has written to the EC notifying this EC of a vacancy in Parliament.
Indeed. So if they're in court right now and they seek a stay of execution and they're challenging the whole process and the court rules in their favor and all interested parties are served, will Matthew Nyindam be reinstated as Member of Parliament for Kpandai?
Yes. So if they arrest the implementation of the operationalization of the letter written by the clerk to Parliament, and also stay the judgment of the High Court Tamale, Martin Yindam will be in Parliament until the final determination of the matter.
Stay with me, Inusa. Let me just bring in Chairman Sabonsu. He's still with us, and he's been listening to the conversation just to get his brief reaction to some of the points you've raised. We've just been hearing from Inusa Hussaini tell us that in matters like this, the Clerk of Parliament need not to take directions from the Speaker. How would you respond to this, really?
First of all, I think he knows the House. The Honourable Minister, a good knows the House. The clerk does not act. So,
oh dear. Mr. Chairman Sabonsu, I'm struggling to hear you, and I presume my audience as well. If you could try and position rightly for me, let's try one more time just to hear the point you're making.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Loud and clear now, please.
It's better now.
Much better, please.
Okay, I will say that the clerk does not act on his own volition. He acts on behalf of Parliament. The Speaker is the head of Parliament. So, when the information comes to Parliament about a vacancy existing anywhere, the Speaker makes the pronouncement acknowledging it, on account of which the clerk then writes to the Electoral Commission. The clerk does not wake up one day to do that. He doesn't act in his own, but on account of the House beholds. And let me go back to what my colleague said. I made it of 3 scenarios where it create one, as I said, by an announcement, family, acknowledge the patient member. When the thing transmitted to Parliament, the Speaker right would cause the Speaker to extract the written letter. That is not made by Parliament. I think people should understand that the Speaker cannot declare and the one person there is for 2 parts. And I've said, when Parliament own declares and is in respect the matter of now,
oh dear. Mr. Chairman Sabonsu, we are still struggling to hear you, and we're trying to... Mr. Chairman Sabonsu, we're still struggling to hear you. So what we're trying to do is to cut the call and raise you on a different line. Hopefully that connection will be better. You're still watching The Pulse. We've just been engaging also Chairman Sabonsu, who is a former majority leader. He says Parliament erred really in its handling of the Kpandai seat controversy. We've also been hearing from a former ranking member, I beg your pardon, on the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament, Inusa Hussaini. He's also of the opinion that the Clerk of Parliament can act independently and does not need to take direction from the Speaker of Parliament. We've just been getting the legal backing and understanding about the whole processes. And one question I posed to Inusa Hussaini was, what exactly happens if indeed the court should rule in favor of Machi Yindam? The stay of execution, all interested parties are served. And he tells us that this would then mean that Machi Yindam will be reinstated until that case is determined by the Supreme Court. So we're just getting the legalities of this, and some key questions we really need to put to the legal team of Machi Yindam, which we're trying to raise them here on The Pulse to find out if indeed all interested parties were served this stay of execution, the EC, Parliament itself, and the other party, the petitioner. That's quite a key question that has been raised by Inusa Hussaini. I'm told I have clear connection now, so I say Chairman Sabonsu, we appreciate your time here on The Pulse. You're just making the point really that indeed the Clerk of Parliament is acting on behalf of Parliament and the Speaker heads Parliament. Make that point for me.
Right. So that point has been made. So I was saying that the clerk does not act on his own volition. on behalf of Parliament, and because the Speaker is the head of Parliament, he would direct the clerk to do so. But the third instance, as I said, is where a matter ensuing from an election is taken to court. That declaration of vacancy would ensue from the court as after emanating from the ruling, which is what has happened. So the declaration of vacancy in this case is by the court, not Parliament. Now, the declaration has been made and is being challenged in court. One, to set it aside and also arrest the execution of it. Now, it is the court's decision that must be challenged in the court, which is what has been done. And so, if the Speaker, the first one came to Speaker and on account of which he has acted wrongfully, because these matters are before the court, if not terminated, exactly as the Speaker did just about 2 years ago in the case of Chechi Kwesi. And I was asking what has changed. So I think that the minority, their business is cut out for them. First, they must challenge the determination of a vacancy by the Speaker and the clerk, and arrest it by calling for a review of the Speaker's directive. And then, of course, the battles will go on in court as they've already started. So I think that is what they should be doing. What is happening now is most unfortunate, as I insist. And we should not take Parliament on this slippery road just because one party has an overwhelming majority. We never know what may happen tomorrow. We never know what may happen tomorrow. So let's not toy with the responsibilities of Parliament.
Also, Chairman Sabunsu, we appreciate your time. The former majority leader joined us here on the pause. Let me wrap up with Inusa Fuseni. I'd like to pick your final thoughts on the way forward.
My good friend, Chairman Sabunsu, former majority leader, has misread and misrepresented the rule of the court. The court did not declare a vacancy in Parliament. The court cannot do that. It will fly in the face of the principle of separation of powers. What the court declared was that Martin Yindam was not otherwise validly elected as a member of Parliament. That is within the jurisdiction of the court to determine whether a person has been validly elected as a member of Parliament. So when the court declared that he had not otherwise been validly elected and that there must be a rerun, Parliament's jurisdiction, and by extension the Speaker's jurisdiction, was now invoked under the Constitution to notify the Speaker of the occurrence of a vacancy. It is not the court that declared a vacancy in Parliament. The court has no jurisdiction to declare a vacancy in Parliament. Now, the second thing I will say is that, well, upon the strict reading of the Constitution, I don't see anywhere that says that the Speaker takes instructions from the clerk takes instructions from the Speaker to write to Parliament to declare a seat vacant.
But the clerk is acting on behalf of Parliament, is he not? And the Parliament itself is headed by the Speaker of Parliament.
I'm developing my argument.
Okay, please do.
The Constitution gives the Speaker functions, and the same Constitution gives the clerk to Parliament some functions. And the Constitution doesn't say that in the performance of the functions of the clerk has to seek directions from the Speaker. The same Constitution. So, if I don't know if my good friend Chairman Sabunsu, at the time he was majority leader, had the Speaker directing the clerk to act in a certain way, I have no idea.
But you agree that the Clerk of Parliament is not acting on his own accord, is acting on behalf of Parliament, which the Speaker heads Parliament. You agree?
But pursuant to the Constitution. Pursuant to the Constitution. He's acting, he's not put there because of the Speaker. He's put there by the Constitution.
To act on behalf of who?
He's put there as head of the parliamentary service. As head. So the Constitution gives him that responsibility. So I mean, unless I can be directed to a provision of the law which says that before a speaker can, before a clerk can declare a vacancy in Parliament, he must receive directions from the Speaker. I will feel very reluctant to abandon my position because you see, you need to create institutions, not persons. If you want our democracy to be sustainable and strong, you need to create institutions, and the institution of the Speaker.
Annoh Hussaini, we seem to have lost connection to you. You're back now.
The institution of the clerk to Parliament need to be strengthened in such a way that he cannot be under the manipulation of a Speaker of Parliament. That's my argument.
Even though you don't want to abandon your initial position, you would agree that the Clerk of Parliament is not acting on isolation. He's acting on behalf of Parliament.
Where the clerk has to take instructions from the Speaker, it is provided in the standing orders or in the Constitution.
But looking at the bigger picture, the minority have raised concerns that this is a grand scheme by the NDC to ensure a third term for the Mahama administration. I'd like to pick your thoughts on that.
It can only take a minority of the nature that we have to make that connection.
You disagree?
How does an election petition in Kpandai operate to fund a third-term claim of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama? How is it related?
It's a game of numbers, is it not? Parliament is simply a game of numbers.
The majority
and if they're losing numbers, they should be concerned.
The majority in Parliament already has 2/3 majority, and that is the upper ceiling in amendments required by Parliament to the Constitution. That's the upper ceiling. And they have it already. So how does an election in Kpandai operate to add to the numbers in such a way as to fund the claim of a third term of John Dramani Mahama? It's just warped. It's warped thinking.
Annoh Hussaini, former Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, also former ranking member on the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee of Parliament. We appreciate your time here on The Pulse. We have also been engaging Machinda, and my colleague Kenneth Jesse is on standby to bring us that. We will be playing that shortly. We have been speaking to the man who is indeed going through this turbulent time in his career as a Member of Parliament. But let me take you back to Parliament. The minority, they've returned. We showed you visuals earlier that they have been engaging members after that meeting with the Speaker of Parliament. And so let's take you back to Parliament, find out what is happening. Then we'll hear from Machinda.
Yes, Majority Leader. Let me hear you. members, I am surprised that an issue is raised and you don't want a response to the issue.
How can I talk? If I talk, nobody will hear me. If I talk, nobody can hear me.
Honorable members, too much of everything is bad. Honorable members, kindly resume your seats.
Okay, but I still need to come and ask the question, then I can go. Yes, that's you see the existing standing. What is happening?
You had the minority members of parliament clad in black chanting Mahama no third term. My colleague James Aveji is in parliament. Let's take you there live and engage him because he's actually there and he's just monitoring the proceedings on the floor of parliament. Why are they chanting? I thought the House went on recess so that they can deal with their issues with the Speaker of Parliament. What happened, James?
So they came back about some 5 minutes ago. The Speaker walked in and gathered the House back to session. And in his official announcement to the House, he said, due to continuing from where they left, this is the decision he has taken, that he wants to give another opportunity to the minority to rehash the statement they had made before they went on that short break, which is the opposition to the declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant. The minority then shouted from where they were that no, they would not allow their leader to make any statement on the issue again. The issue has been said, his statement had been made, and that is clear enough to send the needed message. The Speaker then comes in to say that, well, if they will not take the opportunity, he will now give that opportunity to the majority side, the leader, Mahama Yariga, who is currently standing on his feet since this started, to also, for the majority to also make a statement on the issue on the basis of fairness and natural justice, which is a principle that guides the House, which demands that when a matter comes to the House, both sides must have an equal opportunity to make statement or debate the matter. That further annoyed the minority, who increased their protest a bit further and stood to their feet and continued with the chanting in what we are hearing at the background. The Speaker tried in several attempts in order to calm them down, whip them into order so that they can proceed, but they will not listen to the Speaker. They are still continuing with that stand-up protest, holding placards indicating their displeasure in the two options the Speaker has given, which is that they should allow both the majority and the minority leaders to make statements on the matter. So essentially, that is what has provoked this fresh protest from both the minority members. The call has only been for them, for the Speaker to, for their leaders, both leaders on both sides of the House, to make statement on the issue. And they will not budge to that. They will not allow proceedings to go on. We're still waiting on the Speaker to make some decision on this. It is unclear whether the House will proceed from here, or the Speaker maybe may have to call proceedings to an abrupt end for today. We're still waiting on that decision from the Speaker. But as we speak, all the members of the minority, cladded in their black and in black nose masks, are hitting the desk in front of them with either the order paper or other documents they have come to the House with. Some are still holding up their placards, some which reads, "We know your attempt for a third term," referring to the president. Some accusing the president of having some influence over the judiciary, arriving at the decision to declare the Kpandai seat vacant, calling for a rerun. Others are calling. I see there the Speaker's document being packed away now. The Speaker's document have all been packed away from his table. It is unclear what his decision would be for continuing from here. It is unclear whether the Speaker himself, Alban Bagby, is in the House. Okay, firstly, so you have in your shot there the Speaker himself, Alban Bagby, making his way to the floor of Parliament from wherever he is. He's making his way back to the floor now to take over from the First Deputy Speaker, Honorable Bernard Ahia, for the two of them taking a bow to each other, signaling a change there, where the Speaker himself, Alban Bagby, you see Bernard Ahia for there, briefing Speaker Alban Bagby on what has been happening. Speaker Alban Bagby now proceeds to take his seat now and take over the proceeding. It is unclear whether he will be able to bring the House to order, looking at the temperature coming from the minority side who are continuing with the protest. Speaker Alban Bagby is now in his seat. We expect him to exercise his authority as the main Speaker of the House and be able to call the agitating minority to order, to get them to take their seat from precedent. When the minority do not agree, or either sides of the House do not agree, what they do is to stage a walkout. We don't know whether they will be staging that walkout now as we speak, but it is clear they will not allow Speaker Bagby to have any audience. Speaker Bagby is now signaling this side of the House, which is the majority on his right side, to calm down. It looks like some of the members are urging him on to proceed and call the House to order so that they can execute the business of the day. The majority leader, Mahama Yariga, has now resumed his seat after standing for over 10 minutes, calling on the other side of the House to give him audience to also make a statement on what has been happening. For those just joining us live from Parliament, the minority, since the beginning of proceedings at 12:30, have been protesting the declarance of the Kpandai seat vacant. I want that you can see there the minority deputy whip, Honorable Habib Idrisu, trying so hard to calm his members, to let them calm down. His second deputy minority whip, Jerry Ahmed, has joined the other members in the protest. So you see there the first deputy minority whip, Habib Idrisu, as well as Frank Annoh-Dompreh, trying to calm down their members on the minority side in order to give audience to the Speaker Alban Bagby. It is unclear whether he will succeed in that attempt to calm them down, but you see him there in frantic effort, trying very hard to calm down his members on the minority side in order to give audience to the Speaker Alban Bagby to at least hear what he has to say, and as to whether they will accept what he says or not, we yet to know about that. But it is becoming clearer that the minority membership will not even hear from their leadership, will not budge to the calming of the minority first deputy minority whip, Habib Idrisu. You see Habib Idrisu there make his way back to the minority whip himself, Frank Annoh-Dompreh, to whisper something to him. It's unclear what he's told him, but it looks like the minority leadership will not budge to that persuasion from their leadership in order to calm down and allow the House to continue with the proceedings of the day. For those just joining us, the minority side live in Parliament have decided to protest the declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant by the Tamale High Court, which effectively that declaration has been enforced now by the clerk to Parliament, who wrote to the Electoral Commission communicating Parliament's decision to declare that seat vacant and calling on the Electoral Commission to heed to the orders of the Tamale High Court to conduct a rerun of the Kpandai seat, and that is what the minority have been protesting. The minority chief whip, Frank Annoh-Dompreh, earlier at the beginning of the proceedings, registered his strong exception, strong disagreement to that decision by the House, calling on the House to, with immediate effect, order for a recall of that decision. And that is what they've been protesting. It looks like the minority side have now heeded to the call by their leaders to stop the process, and so there is calm now. The minority have concluded or stopped that protest that they've been registering in the last 15-20 minutes, and I'm sure the Speaker of the House, Alban Bagbin, will now take over the proceedings and rule on the matter, and then we'll proceed from here whether the two sides of the House would still give any debate the matter or they would proceed on that. Let's listen to Speaker Alban Bagbin now.
Please let there be order. Before I inquire to know the state of affairs, it's important on your behalf acknowledge the presence of some visitors. We have students from the Muzano Senior High School, led by the patron of the school, Mrs. Samuel Kojo Esuman. They are 65 in number, coming from the Gomwa West constituency. On your behalf, I warmly welcome them to the House of Parliament, which is the House of the people. As at now, we are occupying these seats on their behalf. So please, you are welcome, and don't be surprised. These are your products. It's Ghanaians who vote for us to be here. And therefore, we should truly represent the people who vote for us. We are here for nothing but their interests. That is what we are here to further. And so please, you are welcome. Resume your seats. We have a few things to do today. And just please keenly watch what is happening. Learn the good ones, not the bad ones. Honorable members, may I listen to the leaders to give me a brief of the current situation in the House before I proceed? Yes, Majority Leader and Leader of the House.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, Majority Leader. Majority Leader.
Well, we'll take you back to Parliament. What you're seeing right now as we speak are initial visuals we had of the minority on the floor of Parliament. I'm told I have clear connection now to my colleague James Avejin. Speaker of Parliament is currently addressing the House. Let's take you back there.
Honourable Member, order in the House. Order in the House. Page 73 of the Standing Orders. Chair to be heard in silence. Order 1261. The Speaker is responsible for the maintenance of order and observance of the rules of debate in the House. 1262. Whenever the Speaker addresses the House, any member standing shall immediately resume the member's seat, and the Speaker shall be heard in silence. 3. Whenever the Speaker rises in situations of disorder, any member standing shall immediately resume the member's seat. 4, a member shall not leave the member's seat while the Speaker is addressing the House. Honorable members, this is just to refresh your memory. Just on Sunday, I had the honor of hosting the first-timers at the residence of the Speaker, which I happen to occupy now. Honorable member, Honorable members, this is the House of Representatives. This is not the Ghana Armed Forces. The Ghana Armed Forces have only men. In this House, we have men and women. So please, if you are directing questions, use a language that is gender compliant. Honorable members, please, I keenly observed all what took place this morning and this afternoon. But the order permits me, on resuming the seat, to at least inquire to know the state of affairs. Usually, we start with the leader of the House. If for any good reason you think that we should listen to somebody else, we will do so. But for business, it must continue to go on. Honorable members, please, we are in a democratic state. Honorable members, once again, I call the House to order. I want the sense of the House as to where to start from. If you want to vary the order, we are always applying, which is a convention now. Usually, the leader of the House is given the opportunity to start. I would definitely listen to other views. But this is a house of order. Please. Yes, leader of the house.
So for those joining us live from Parliament, it appears that the minority side will still not batch to the orders of the Speaker. They have just resumed their seat, but it looks like both speakers, both Alban Bagbin as well as the First Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, are finding it very, very difficult in order to call to order the members of the House. Speaker is speaking now. Let's hear from him and to proceed.
I cannot guide the House to find a solution without listening to the House. Honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, honorable members, please, I know we cannot resolve the problem without a conclave, but I must first know the problem before.
So we're back to the chaos and the protest, and it looks like the minority will still not heed the call from both leaders and the speaker in order to calm situations. For those just joining us, the minority in the last hours have been protesting the Parliament decision through the Clerk of Parliament to declare the Kpandai seat vacant. It took hours of attempts by the First Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, who has been in the seat since morning, to calm them down, but they will not budge to the persuasion from the Speaker and not even from their own leadership when they attempted to. The Speaker himself, Annoh-Dompreh, walked in some 30 minutes ago to take the seat and has been trying pretty hard in order to calm the minority down, to proceed for them to back down on their protest against the declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant. Even Speaker Annoh-Dompreh himself is finding it pretty difficult in the last 30 minutes or so in order to calm the minority down for proceedings to continue. In fact, when he came in and called the House to order, when he just at the point he called for the minority and majority leaders in order for them to brief him on what has been happening, they resumed the protest. It took the Speaker to employ Order 1263 in order to calm him down.
To an understanding that there is a need for us to have a conclave where the Speaker will preside over the discussions at the conclave and then mediate for us to come to consensus. So please, I cannot just, after resuming the seat, just suspend sitting again.
I will suspend sittings for 5 minutes, and I expect to.
Well, the Speaker of Parliament, Annoh-Dompreh, compelled to suspend sitting again for 5 minutes. If you just tuned in earlier, the First Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, faced the same challenge trying to call the minority to order. They've been on the floor chanting different words just to register their displeasure about the declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant. They argue that there are still pending cases in the Supreme Court. Hence, Parliament ought to have hastened slowly in the declaration of the seat vacant by the Clerk of Parliament, officially notifying the Electoral Commission to trigger the processes for the rerun in Kpandai constituency. Well, the Speaker, Annoh-Dompreh, had to take over from the First Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, and he tried to call the House to order. He stroked his gavel a couple of times, just trying to get the minority to listen to what he had to say. He started by calling the majority leader to take the floor. He has been standing for a couple of minutes, but unable to speak because the minority is still chanting those songs on the floor of Parliament. We could see now on our screens Parliament, the majority leader, clearly upset by what is going on on the floor of Parliament, and will be crossing over shortly just to hear from him. The Speaker of Parliament has told members of parliament that he will be taking a 5-minute recess just to see if indeed the minority will calm down. We'll also be hearing from the man in the eye of the storm, Matu Indam, shortly, because he's also been speaking, just venting his frustration, really. The minority, they say that there is a grand scheme to ensure that President John Dramani Mahama gets a 3rd term. The reason they're kicking against the declaration of the seat vacant. Let me take you now to Parliament. I have clear connection to Parliament. And a 5-minute recess, just as he was clearly frustrated by the whole process. The minority clearly not listening even to their leadership, really. The speaker earlier, we saw him striking the gavel just in his desperate attempt to call the House to order, but that was unsuccessful. He gave the majority leader the platform to speak. The minority still kicked against it. They are very, very displeased about the whole process. We will be taking you back to Parliament when we have clear connection, just to engage James Aveji, who is on the grounds as we speak. He has been engaging some members of Parliament earlier. We heard from the likes of John Darkon. We've heard from the likes of Frank Annoh-Dompreh, all registering their displeasure about what exactly has happened on the floor of Parliament. If you just tune in, the Kpandai seat has been declared vacant. That's because the Clerk of Parliament has already triggered that process. He has sent that official memo to the EC, and the process has been triggered. We know that the Tamale High Court annulled the Kpandai elections. And let me take you back to Parliament. I'm told I have clear connection. Well, the Speaker of Parliament, you can see in your shot, still on his seat. He earlier called for a 5-minute recess in his desperate attempt to get the minority to listen to him. He earlier signaled the majority leader. Oh, I can see he's speaking. Let me take you there live.
The alternative to peace is something that none of you will treasure. The alternative to peace is nothing that none of you will treasure. So please, let there be peace. We have the orders, and I'm bound to follow the orders. Please, I cannot do anything than to follow the orders, unless you change the standing orders. As at now, what I have before me are the standing orders as presently constituted. And that is what I'm going by. Please, we have to listen to the leader of the House. And the alternative, honorable members, because of the nature of the business before the House, the alternative is not, in fact, it's a no-go area. Business must go on today. Yes, in the interest of the country, in the interest of the public, the people that we represent here, business must go on. In your own interest, we have to continue with the business of the day. Please, for the last time, let business go on. Peace must prevail.
So Speaker Kpandai there is still trying to get the attention of members. He's just signaled the Marshal of Parliament now and whispering some words to him. It's unclear what instructions the Speaker Kpandai is giving the Marshal of Parliament now and what actions may be taken. Just before he signaled the marshal, he indicated that the business of the House must continue. Only solution on the table now is for the minority to allow for the business of the House to proceed, which must start from them allowing the majority leader, Mahama Yariga, to give him official briefing on what has been transpiring since morning, for which reason the business of the day is still pending without any progress. The minority still insist they will not allow the majority leader to give that briefing. The speaker says the alternative is not advisable for him to take. The alternative could include that he may, have to adjourn the House, or any member who catches his eye that he believes is causing the disorder on the floor, the speaker would have to order the marshal to get that member out. You see the marshal there proceeding to Honorable Mahama Yariga, from the speaker, coming to whisper some information to the majority leader, Mahama Yariga. Now, it's unclear what directive the speaker is trying to give to the majority leader, but he's whispering to him. The alternative, according to the speaker, is something he doesn't want to explore. That could be that a member may be marched off the floor of the House today if the speaker, if they catch the eye of the speaker, and the speaker believes that that member is a reason for the chaos. The marshal of the House has gone back to the speaker with what I want to believe is a response or a concern from the majority leader. The speaker has been communicated to now on what the next line of action could be. He sent the marshal to the majority leader, came to whisper some words to him, and the marshal went back to the speaker. The speaker may be pushed to take a decision now. Unclear what that decision could be. For a decision that would be directed to the whole House, maybe to adjourn for briefly for some few minutes and come back to an attempt to see if they can still proceed with the business of the day. An individual decision or a more particular or specific decision, directed decision, could be to a specific member of the House who the speaker believes is responsible for the chaos. At that point, the speaker will be enjoined to order the marshal of the House to march that member out, which of course may get some reactions from the members of the minority. We know the last time such an order had been given, you saw the members of the minority forming walls to block the marshal from undertaking that instruction by the speaker. But for those just joining us, it has been a long day of disagreement between, of protest, I must say, from the minority side of the House, who are protesting vehemently the declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant. The marshal of the House is back, whispering some words to the speaker. It's unclear where he has been to, and back now, and whispered what may seem as a final word to the speaker, and the speaker may proceed to take a decision based on that. And we're waiting on what the speaker's decision would be. But the speakers, both the First Deputy Speaker, Honorable Bernard Ahiafo, has from about 12:30 p.m. tried everything within his powers and within the standing orders to, calm or persuade the minority to abandon the protest they are staging against the declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant. He failed to do that in the last almost 1 hour or so. the Speaker Urban Bagbin, from wherever he was, walked to Parliament, walked to the floor, and exchanged the seat from the First Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, and took over proceedings. And that attempt to calm them down is still ongoing. The minority is still singing, chanting. The Speaker is back to possibly declare what the final statement will be on this.
Honorable members, after consultation, I'll suspend sitting for 5 minutes. I'll be back within 5 minutes. Sitting is accordingly suspended.
Well, on your screens there, Parliament live feed. The Speaker has officially suspended sitting for 5 minutes. He tried to get the minority to be calm and listen to him. My colleague James Aveji is in Parliament for us. James joins us live now. James, quite a day in Parliament. The Speaker has declared a 5-minute break, but then you're on the grounds. I'm sure you've been engaging some members of Parliament. What exactly are their reservations, especially the majority?
For Steve, so we now trying to see if we can get some reactions from the majority side of the House, but it is clear at this point that the minority would not give way for the House, the business of the House to proceed. Just a bit of context again, the minority, just at the start of proceedings, have decided to register their displeasure about the House's decision to declare the Kpandai seat vacant. They proceeded with tons of patriotic songs calling on the clerk to the House to resign immediately. They also accused the President of having some influence over the judiciary, which reflected in that decision taken by the court to declare the seat vacant. That is what they have been protesting since morning. Both speakers have tried in vain to calm them down in order to let the business of the House to proceed. Speaker Urban Bagbin has, just as you heard there, also adjourned the House briefly to allow for who has to prevail, and also try and see if he can get some audience from the leadership of the House in order for them to return and try and see if they can proceed with business of the House. It's unclear what the majority's strategy will be yet. It is also unclear what the Speaker's final pronouncement will be on this matter yet. But both sides are still locked in the House, and it is unclear what the decision would be. Honorable, I just want to take your view briefly on what has been happening. We can just walk through my camera. I've just got Honorable Al-Hassan Suhaili here to give us some reaction. First of all, what you're reacting to what we've been experiencing since afternoon?
I think it's shameful. I mean, I don't understand why we say we live in a democracy, but we are not willing to use the democratic, tools available to us to resolve the problems and the grievances that we have. I mean, you, the minority, are not happy. You say you are not happy with the letter that has been written by the Clerk of Parliament, the Electoral Commission. And because of that, Parliament should grant a halt. I mean, they are laid down proceedings. You have the opportunity, like we say every time in democratic parliament, that the minority will always have their say. So you have the opportunity on the floor of Parliament. You have the opportunity on the floor of Parliament to express your views. Let the world hear what your views are. And if they are reasonable enough, you will get support for it. But you don't say that you are not willing to even canvass your views on the floor. But because you are not happy about a democratic process that is underway, Parliament must grant a halt. You don't do that.
Have they not done that? That's what they did when the House began sitting. They canvassed their voice, leading to the first protest that compelled the first deputy speaker to adjourn the House. Why did the speakers, both of them, have to say they want to give them the opportunity to recanvass that opposition when they have already done that?
No, the speaker is not saying he wants. They have already done that. Now let the business of the House continue. Let's hear the majority leader. So you, who is a very tiny minority, have had your say, but you say the majority shouldn't have its say. It shouldn't do government business today. I mean, what kind of arrogance is that? What kind of, I don't even have the right adjective to describe it, but I think that it is just uncultured behavior. Look, I always say that they compare apples to oranges. I mean, sometimes I see them trying to imitate some of the things that happened in the 8th Parliament. But excuse me, you are talking about a Parliament that had, a hung number that you could correctly describe as a hung Parliament. It was 138, 138. I mean, so the numbers were such that it was difficult at one point to determine where the minority or the majority side was, because it was sometimes dependent on numbers on the floor. But you're talking here about an overwhelming majority, where you are the minority. You recall that when we were in the 7th Parliament, I was there. Honorable Haruna Idrisu-led minority didn't behave like the Asuposin-led minority. Why? Because when Honorable Haruna Idrisu and Muntaka was leading us in the 7th Parliament, we recognized the fact that we were the minority because we're not equal, we didn't have equal numbers. So what Honorable Haruna Idrisu those days will always say is that for the record, so he will get up and state all our positions for the record. We will either stay or walk out, but we will state our views for the record. We never for once in the 7th Parliament stopped Parliament from operating. But in the 8th Parliament, the numbers were equal. So you cannot compare things that happened then to what you want to do now. And so they must recognize that. And I think that the leaders of the NPP must begin to sit down and save this ship that is fast sinking. Because you see, we need an alternative in this country. Our democracy does.
For those observing proceedings, they feel that it looks like order has broken down on the floor because the extreme provisions of the standing orders, which is Order 1263, that enjoins the Speaker to rise to his feet, and immediately he does that, all members must resume their seats and listen to him in silence. It's also not respected by members. How do you expect the Speaker to deal with this? Should someone be walked out of the floor?
No, to some extent, you would say that that has been respected. Even in all their protests, you have to recognize that each time the Speaker stood up,
in his second attempt, it took him almost 3-4 minutes to catch the attention of his own members.
But still, people, once they caught that he was standing, resumed their seats. People, went back to their seats and respected that. To that extent, I can say that people have respected the authority of the Speaker. But where we have a challenge now is when we ask or request the majority leader to speak. That's when they begin to protest. And you see, things could have been worse in the House. But the majority is just being quiet and tolerant of the situation. I mean, if we were also going to become unruly, if we were going to behave, in an unruly manner,
how do you expect the Speaker to deal with this?
Well, I think that the Speaker must exercise his authority of walking people who misbehave on the floor out. Because this is not a situation where when one side leaves the House, business cannot take place. In the last parliament, if one side of the house was walked out, you could not have a quorum to do business. And so that is why some bending over, some accommodating had to take place. But in this particular case, I think the Speaker must exercise the right of walking, unruly members out of the House. If they choose not to, exercise the right, that is available to them as Democrats by walking out, the Speaker should exercise that right that he has to walk them out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Honorable Al-Hassan Suhini. Honorable Tafaje is here from the minority side as well. Honorable, why has your side of the House held the entire Parliament to ransom in the last few hours that you do not even want to respect the orders of the Speaker?
Let it not be said that we are not cooperating. We've been cooperating with the majority. We've been supporting with the majority. We've been collaborating with the majority. We respect them. We respect their numbers. If you recall, the presidential address, we supported it unanimously from both sides. Everything. So as far as we are concerned, we'll be doing that. Now, just last, during the budget, Martin Yindam rose to debate the budget according to his time. Then the majority chief was like, because there's a court ruling, you will not allow Martin Yindam to debate, which was wrong. The court ruling was supposed to be written by the clerk, written to the Speaker, direct the clerk, and then the procedure should go. It doesn't lie in your mouth to hold or to stop him from speaking. We raised it because of their numbers. We got it right. The Speaker now came back to rule, and the ruling of the Speaker was clear that when you file a stay of execution, it takes 7 days. And then when during the stay of execution, the person or the individual goes to court to appeal the matter, it is assumed that it's the second layer. Those processes are not done. Then you go behind the Speaker to issue a letter to the Speaker of vacancy. How? That is not right. That is not fair. It is a betrayal of the Speaker's own position and own badge.
And he has now made his way to the floor after noticing your displeasure about what has happened, the communication that has gone to the EC. At least you have to give him the audience to rule on the issue. Then you proceed. But you don't seem to have that patience for him.
The Speaker is not ready to rule now.
Why you think so?
No, because the Speaker is not ready to rule. Because Parliament is a house of records. When you come, there are records. The issue the Speaker wants to hear has already been discussed. So the Speaker should call for the answer. The Speaker should call the clerk. We notice the clerk going up and down. The clerk should tell the Speaker, this was what transpired.
But he based that call on your own orders of the House, which entitles him to call for the leader of the House to brief him officially on what has been transpiring.
I am saying that. Me, I have read the standing order. I have not seen any place like that. Look, sometimes when you observe, when the Speaker is about taking or changing from the Speaker sitting, the Speaker sitting will now tell him that we are doing this, we are doing that, we are doing that. Are you getting that? So there are other ways to do that.
So as far as you are concerned, you will not allow him.
We have already raised the issues already. We do not need other issues to belabor the point. The Speaker as well is aware of the issue. Our issue is with the letter the clerk wrote, which we believe strongly is a betrayal of the Speaker's ruling. So the Speaker can as well do what he has done. He delayed, but he overly delayed. Call for conclave. Let the leadership go and discuss. If they discuss and they are favorable, fine. If they are not favorable, we'll take another action. But as far as we are concerned, the leaders and the majority are abusing their position, they are abusing their numbers, and we will never allow them to take that route again in this house.
Which means if they come back and the Speaker insists that he needs to hear from the majority leader, your side is not ready to cooperate with that.
Let's wait and see. They are going for conclave. When they go for conclave, they will have a discussion. When they have the discussion, the leadership will come back and tell us. When they tell us, we'll take a decision out of what they tell us. But the point is that until that letter is revoked or withdrawn, we will be in the house.
You will not allow business to proceed.
We are here. I said we are here.
But some say, why don't you stage a walkout? You are not considering. Why are you not considering that today?
Okay, so let me tell you. The MPP of the old staged walkout, but the MPP of the new, we are strategic with every decision we take. When it is necessary, it's important for us to take the walkout, we'll do it. Yeah. When it's important for us to stay in the chamber, we'll stay in the chamber. So we observing the things we'll do in the chamber. If we want to work out, all of them are parliamentary proceedings and practices. We can choose to work out, but today, this particular one, nobody is working out. We will be there until we get to the logical conclusion of that matter.
You have planned to hold the business of the House to ransom today?
We are not holding any business. We raise the point. When you take the other paper, the business of the day is arranged, prayer, vote and proceedings, corrections. When you take that, then you see questions, statements. We've got into all that. We've got hold on. You have not been able to deal with any business. Deal with that part. Then we move to the next program. A business of the day.
That's what the speakers have been trying to deal with.
No. Some of the speakers, we don't even want to listen.
Which of them?
I'm not mentioning. We respect Mr. Speaker Abangabwe. We have allowed him to listen to the issues and take a decision. We respect the decision. If we are okay, if we are not okay, we'll challenge the decision. That's fair.
You not listen to the first deputy speaker?
I have not mentioned any name. I'm telling you that we will respect the decision of the speaker. We'll listen to it. When we have to review it, we'll review it. But any other thing, we are not.
If your leaders come back to
our leaders came
to speak to you, to tell you, if they come back from this conclave, they'll tell you that you should allow Honorable Mayari that for a few minutes to make that statement. Will you listen to your own leaders?
The first suspension, the leaders went to meet them. They agreed that we are coming to let Mayari speak. We didn't agree. The leaders have been asking us. You have been. No, look, we are all members of parliament. Respected. Some are seniors, some have been for long. We respect everybody and all that. But we all represent consequences. We all represent
not to respect your own leaders.
Which leaders?
Your own leaders who told you to allow.
We don't agree with what we are saying. More than I do.
My colleague James Savaji there in Parliament, just engaging both sides, both the majority and the minority, just getting your thoughts as to why exactly things have panned out the way they have on the floor of Parliament. We'll also be hearing from the man in the eye of the storm, Matu Yindam himself, shortly, because he's been engaged in the media. We'll be bringing that to you as well. But we've also heard from the majority. They've described what they've seen on the floor of Parliament as shameful, really. The minority have refused to call themselves to order. In fact, defying the orders of their leadership, they have been chanting different songs just to register their displeasure about the declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant. The Clerk of Parliament, they want him out for alerting the EC that the seat has been vacant and hence the EC should start the processes for the rerun in Kpandai. The minority raised a couple of concerns, especially because they have a case in court where they're already challenging the verdict and also the jurisdiction of the Tamale High Court to even hear that matter in itself. They are of the opinion that the Clerk of Parliament ought to have been patient enough to wait for the final decision before going ahead to alert the Electoral Commission. The majority leader, he has been trying for minutes now, if not close to an hour, just to address the House. That was unsuccessful. We also saw that the Speaker himself had to take over from the first Deputy Speaker that was on the floor of Parliament because they were still struggling to get the minority to listen. Well, we'll be taking you back to Parliament because the Speaker himself has called for a 5-minute recess in his desperate attempt to call the minority to order. Let me bring in Rasheed Draman right now. He is Executive Director for Parliamentary Affairs, African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, I beg your pardon. And he joins us live just to get his brief reaction about all we've seen panned out in Parliament today. We've just been hearing from the likes of Al-Hassan Suini tell us that, you know, this is a very different dynamic that the new Parliament is dealing with, the 9th Parliament. This is something we've not dealt with before. It's quite green. The 7th and 8th Parliament panned out differently. How do you propose the Speaker can deal with this impasse in Parliament?
Well, I think, Faustina, it looks like we still don't have a clear agreement, I think, as a country in terms of the rules that we are all playing by. You know, to what extent, or, you know, the judiciary make pronouncement, to what extent, whose pronouncement.
Rasheed Draman, you may have to position rightly for me to hear you clearly. I think there's a connection problem, and so we're struggling to hear you. If you can position rightly, and let's try one more time as you make that.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear now.
Hear me?
Loud and clear
Hello?
now. Doc, I can hear you loud and clear now.
Yes, I was saying that it looks as if we haven't gotten to a point where we are in agreement about the rules that should govern us and the rules that we should all play by. To what extent do we respect the rulings of a court? To what extent do we respect, the purpose of the duties of maybe the clerk and so on? If the court has ruled and then there is maybe a challenge in the court, is somebody disobeying the court? I mean, that's to move the majority to minority. If not, I think we have all been in this country, the 8th Parliament, when we saw a situation where the court had a foray in Parliament. And I think even if there was some disagreement, I think court settled in this particular case. Did the court terminate? And I don't actually know what you know. And disorder in Parliament is going to solve the problem. I don't think, because at the end of the day, I mean, if the process becomes so disorderly, I think Speaker can crack them and get those who are creating the disorder out. So for me, I think that as correspondent has, the Speaker has put for short break. I mean, let full heads deal, good, leave whatever the interests are. I mean, they should try, because a chaotic Parliament and a disorderly one, I think, is not for
Doc, we're still facing the same challenge with raising clear connection to you. So we'll try one more time. Our team will call you once again with a different line so that we can try again and just to hear your thoughts on this. Will cool heads prevail? That's a question on the lips of many. But the man himself has been speaking, Machi Yindam. He held a news conference earlier today. My colleague Kenneth Jesse is on standby to bring us that, and we will be hearing that shortly. But we've been showing you what exactly is playing out on the floor of Parliament. So far, the Speaker of Parliament have tried to calm tensions. He took over from the first Deputy Speaker, Bernard Ahiafo, earlier, because Bernard Ahiafo was also facing the similar challenge of calling the minority to order. They're very livid. You could see them on the screens registering their displeasure about the declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant, and the Clerk of Parliament, they're demanding his immediate removal because they are of the opinion that he ought to have hastened slowly with that notification to the Electoral Commission to trigger the process to organize a rerun at Kpandai, simply because there's a case in court right now. The legal team for Machi Yindam is at the Supreme Court challenging the verdict of the Tamale High Court and questioning their capacity to even rule on this case. They have challenges with jurisdiction and what have not. We've just been hearing from key individuals on the floor of Parliament earlier. But let me go now to Rasheed Draman. I'm told I have clearer connection to him. We were just making a point about the need to make cool heads prevail in Parliament, but we're seeing quite a unique Parliament this time, where we have what many have described as supermajority and a minority who feels that their voice is being silenced. How do you propose the leader can deal with this, especially because already the minority is raising concerns about the processes that led to declaration of the Kpandai seat vacant? They've raised concerns that this is a subtle grand scheme by the majority to secure a third term for Mahama. Your thoughts on this?
Well, the third term issue, I don't know. I don't know about that, so maybe I might not be able to comment. But you see, Faustina, what is happening is that I think the same kind of accusations that were leveled against the majority in the 8th Parliament are the same kind of accusations that are being leveled against the majority now in the 9th Parliament, which means I think we have a problem with our judiciary. Because in the 8th Parliament, if you remember, when the leader at the time went to court and got the Supreme Court to sit on the matter of the Speaker declaring those seats vacant at the time. I think the NDC, said a lot of things about the judiciary. Now the tables have turned. All of a sudden, the judiciary that the MPP was running to, they don't also trust that judiciary. So it means we have a big problem. And that is, I think, the fundamental problem. We have to get to a point where, the way these things are done, how the judges are appointed and so on and so forth, and the way they dispense justice, I think we have to get to a point where all of us can, wherever you find yourself, you can trust whatever is coming from a branch of government. But I think we are not there yet, and that is what is creating this problem.
But we have a new Chief Justice. He sits at the helm of affairs, Paul Bafabuni, and is optimistic of changing the fortunes of the judiciary around. Where exactly should he start, especially because concerns have already been raised by individuals like you about the separation of powers?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult task for him. And I believe that this is not going to be an overnight kind of process. It will take a lot of reforms. And it will take a lot of time for, everybody to wrap around, their heads around seeing justice being dispensed fairly and equally across. That's a big task before him. I don't know how he's going to do that, how long it's going to take, and whether he even has enough time, given what is ahead of him before he goes in retirement and so on. Whatever it is, I think the process needs to start until we get to a point where, for instance, maybe let me just give a hypothetical situation. We see the judiciary disagreeing with, a party that is in power, saying this is wrong. And we see that, maybe happening continuously. I think that could help in terms of getting everybody to think that, that arm of government is not in bed with the party that's in power, and this cuts across. And you see even the problem of the appointment of the Chief Justice. We had the minority boycott the process. So now these are Chief Justices are supposed to preside over, the justice system in our country. How do we get these people to come around and trust that they can work with the Chief Justice? We have a very big problem. We have a very big problem.
And many have criticized the minority, really, with regards to how they have conducted themselves, especially in today's proceedings. But just looking at the game of numbers on the floor of Parliament, this is a minority that is already very little in numbers, and they are struggling to maintain their seats. With the likes of the Kpandai seat being declared vacant, how would that even impact on the operations as the minority? How do you propose they strike a balance?
Well, I think have to be heard at all times. But I think where I disagree is the noise making and making Parliament ungovernable. I think they have to get the citizens on their side. That's where they say they are a mighty minority, even if they are small in number. And I think some of us believe in that. And the way they can do that is to take their issues to the Ghanaian citizenry and let us be on their side, i.e., when matters happen in Parliament, we've heard them most of the time. They hold press conferences, they express their views and so on. And I think Ghanaians applaud that. But I don't think Ghanaians agree with making noise and shouting in Parliament and trying to disrupt the process, because they think that because of their numbers, maybe that's the only way they can. But there's a limit to how far you can go with that kind of strategy, because it gets to a point where maybe the Right Honourable Speaker can crack the whip, and when we get to that point, it's not going to be pleasant for the minority side.
And what options do you propose the Speaker explore to deal with this issue, especially because the minority have raised concerns that they feel gagged by the majority because of the game of numbers as well? How do you propose the Speaker deal with this moving forward?
Well, I think one of the things that the Speaker can do, if I may suggest, I think is to already in our standing orders, right now the new standing orders is, time for backbenchers and so on. I think ample time should be given to the minority side. They need to be heard, and they need to be heard on the floor of the House. Yes, it has to be proportional and so on, but I think all over the world, we know that the business of holding government to account is the business of the minority. The minority is not very interested in holding itself to account. This is not Ghana alone. So if we can find a way to give ample voice to the minority, I think that would help in reducing tension, because already they are proceeding on the basis of the perception that they are being gagged simply because of their small number. So a lot of work needs to be done, because at the end of the day, we don't want a one-sided democracy. We want a democracy, a parliament that operates and looks like a parliament. We don't want to go back to a one-party state or a one-sided parliament, where decisions are taken by one side, like we saw recently in the approval of the Chief Justice and other matters. No, we want the minority to sit there and to be heard, and let their voices be heard, even if they lose the vote. So they need to be given a bit more time to articulate their cases and to articulate their concerns on all matters that come before the House.
And what we've seen play out today on the floor of Parliament, it appears the majority, rather, have been denied the opportunity to speak. So how do you propose we deal with that as well?
Yeah, that's why I was saying earlier. That also, I think, is not going to help the minority, because you can shout, but the shouting has limits. Are they going to continue to shout every day in the House and then say no business can take place? No, I think it has its limit. But yes, you are right. Today, I think that they have been denied a voice. Unfortunately, so the mighty minority is really showing its strength.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rasheed Draman. He's Executive Director for the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. We appreciate your time here on the Pulse. But we'll take you back to Parliament. The Speaker called for a 5-minute recess. We'll take you back to Parliament. And we're also working our lines to touch base with our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent on the ground, engaging both sides of the House, both the minority and the majority. I told you that we would be bringing you that package. March Indam has been speaking today. He's the man in the eye of the storm, really. He has just been tabling his thoughts about all that is happening. Currently, we've heard from both political sides. The NPP has also released a statement, which we'll be bringing to you shortly. They've raised concerns about this whole controversy about the declaration of Kpandai seat vacant. The NDC is also speaking as well. They say they're on the grounds already campaigning. They're very optimistic that they would be winning that seat. But the NPP is very firm with that seat. They say they'll be exploring all the legal avenues possible to stay the execution of that court order. And that's a conversation we're having here on the Pulse. Please stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick turn.